What's going on, everyone? My name is Johnny Bannon and I'm your CCNA instructor for this CCNA video series. And in this video, we're going to go over TFTP, or the Trivial File Transfer Protocol. And in this lab, it's going to be really simple. So let me just kind of get the lay of the land for you. So we have our viral router here in our EVNG topology. Let me get this out of the way. And this is going to make a connection to our bridge network here, which is giving us access to this 192.168.1 subnet. And then on my local computer, which can reach that 192.168.1 subnet, I'm running a SolarWinds TFTP server. So this is going to be the TFTP server that this router reaches out to send its iOS as backup, then also pull an iOS from in case we want to actually upgrade our iOS and our flash on our system. So this is a pretty simple lab. You can see here there's 6 steps. 3 are the basic steps I have in all my labs. So, I mean, really, guys, there's nothing to this. And again, for my paid viewers, I want to thank you for paying for our CCNA Bootcamp, where we give you access to our practice exam software, our entire lab simulations, and also our Discord, where we have IT recruiters and IT professionals in there giving coaching and mentoring and career placement help. So now that that sales pitch is out of the way, let's go over this environment again. EVNG, viral router, cloud, or network management bridge. And then if you need the instructions, because you can't download our EVNG topology because you're not a student of our course, it is free in my GitLab, which is posted in the description below, which is a public repo that anyone can reach. So here in the CCNA video course, every section is going to have labs and instructions, and here's the TFTP lab, which you're going to get a network diagram and also the instructions. So I'm going to move that off to the right, to the monitor you can't see, and let's go ahead and begin this lab. So first thing I want to go through with you is downloading the TFTP server. Now for all these IP services labs, I've gone over how just basically, hey, here's why I found this software for syslog, for SNMP. I just went on to Google, typed in TFTP free server download. And the quickest, or the first one that showed up and was really simple, was SolarWinds. So I just went and downloaded the free tool. Yes, they make you sign up. It's annoying, but it's fine. I mean, you don't have to get their emails, their marketing emails if you don't want. Downloaded it, installed it, and it just immediately started working when I did a test run. So you can see here, this TFTP server is listening on UDP port 69. And another step we have to do here is you have to pick a directory that you're going to either transfer your files to or pull from. So what we mean by this is essentially we have to go in here to File and Configure and say, hey, where do you want to pull files from? We're going to say from this TFTP server root directory. So you have to set that, okay? And again, this one, I love it. It's just so simple. You can stop and start the service here. You can easily choose the root directory. So if I wanted to pull a file from my desktop, I could come here, click OK, and it changes where I can pull files from as a TFTP client. But I want to do it in the C drive. So let's go to this PC, C drive. And then I have this one, TFTP root, and I made this directory, okay? So I'm going to bring this off to the side here. So now we can console into my viral router. And we're going to verify the IP addressing. It looks like nothing's configured yet. And that's okay because, I mean, it's such a simple lab. I mean, what's there to configure? An IP address, a default route out, and then we're good to go. We don't need to like enable a TFTP service on our router or anything like that, like you would in maybe your computer. Like, you know, you have to enable Telnet in Windows. We don't have to do that. We just do the copy flash TFTP command and so forth. So let me have this router boot up. I'm going to paste a baseline configuration, which could be found on that GitLab that is available to any of our students, whether or not you bought our course or are streaming it on a free streaming service. So I'm going to copy that baseline. I'm going to come over here. I'm already in global config mode. I'm going to change the name and hit paste. Okay. I'm going to wait for this baseline to get uploaded. And then once we do that, we just got to do the IP addressing. All right. So I was running just a little slow. Okay, here we go. So now let's go into interface gig 00. This is the interface facing that network management bridge or cloud. And I'm going to give this an IP address. Let me go back to my network diagram here in the monitor on my right monitor you can't see. And the IP address is .1.69, and then it's a /24. All right, and then we're going to no shut. We're to exit, and then we're just going to put a default static route out to the default gateway of the subnet. So that's .1. And then before we move on, what we're going to do is ping our TFTP server, which is actually my local host computer, because the TFTP server application is running on that computer. So I'm going to go to command prompt. Again, this is on my local computer, and you have to do this for wherever your TFTP server sits. You have to get the IP address for it. So that's my IP. So let's do a do ping 192.168.30.214. And I can reach it. I have reachability. So now let's test to make sure that TFTP is working. So what we're going to do here is back up our iOS. So that's step 4. Copy your iOS from R1 to a folder on your TFTP server. So that's going to be copy flash. So before we do that, let's just see what's in our flash. What's the name of the iOS? So here's our iOS here. And typically in the real world, you're going to see something, kind of similar, but then you're going to see a .bin as the extension. So it's going to be copy flash and then the iOS name, and then it's going to be TFTP, and then I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask you for the IP address of that TFTP server, and it's 30.214. Destination file name, we can keep that, that's fine. And look at that, we're transferring, awesome. So now if we come back to our server here, look at that. It's actually seeing the messages coming across. And we see that source port a little different, right? That's not the 69 port. So I'm gonna go ahead and cancel this though with Control-Shift-6X. Just because you see it's working, we don't need to wait for all that, right? Okay, and now let's go ahead and perform a Wireshark capture. And let's do the opposite. Let's go ahead and pull an iOS from that TFTP server. So now the commands are just going to be opposite. Now it's going to be copy via TFTP to our flash. And then remote address name. And then it's going to say the source file name. So see, we have an extra little thing in here. So instead of just asking the destination file name, because it already knows the source, right? I already told it here. Now I got to say, okay, I want to go, you have to get the full name of what you want to get. So what I always do just to be safe is come here to properties and make sure that there is an extension, that I put that extension there. But I'm going to get this source file name, boom, and then destination file name, that's fine. And then we're not going to confirm this here because I don't want to overwrite this, right? If this was a new iOS, we wouldn't get this message. I'm going to hit Control-C, but it would have worked. And now let's go back and do our original command, copy flash our iOS via TFTP. And here, let's check out the Wireshark capture. Okay, boom, we're good to go. And let's see that capture. So I kind of want to go to the first initial TFTP, and I hope, damn, that's started a long time ago. Okay, I want to get to the very first TFTP message that we saw come across. All right, I mean, I know people are going to be in the comments like, hey, you could just filter it. You're right, but let's just go ahead and see here. So you see, this looks like the first TFTP message. So notice the source port here. It's a random ephemeral port picked by the client, and the destination port is 69. But then when we reply back to that client, we pick a different source port. So remember, this is from client to server. So what we're looking at here is essentially we're saying, hey, our client is sending to destination port 69 to reach the TFTP server. But when the server replies back, its destination port is going to be the source port of the client, but it changes its source port to a random ephemeral port. So now our communication is going to be between those two random ephemeral ports instead of using the actual designated TFTP port. So kind of cool, right? We see that the only time we use that TFTP port as a destination is that in that initial message. And you see here, let's get into the actual TFTP message. It's a write request saying, hey, we want to put something on the server. So that's a write request. Then everything after that is going to be those data blocks, which are going to be 512 bits. So it's 512 bits for each data block, which is why you see so many here. I mean, just look at it. I mean, it's literally all TFTP. I mean, it's going in 512 bytes. So not huge chunks that we're sending. And all right, that's going to be it for our TFTP lab. Again, very simple, very easy. But again, that's fine. That's all we need for TFTP. That works. We can back up iOSs. One thing I also wanted to show you guys is how to actually... So let's go over the steps we just did, right? So if we're trying to put or upgrade our iOS, we got to pull the iOS from a TFTP or FTP server and put it into our Flash system. And then once it's in the Flash, how does the router know to boot that new one? Well, you have to tell it. So we do that from global configs. There's a little extra. So during the iOS upgrade, you have to tell, once the new iOS is in the Flash, it's stored in the Flash, just like you would store it in a hard drive, right? A file. Now we have to tell that router or switch to boot from that new one. So that command is going to be boot system flash, and then the system image, that new one. So typically what you do here is like dir flash : you would see the new iOS name, wherever that is, and then you would type in boot system flash, and then the new system file name, the full file name, extension included. So it usually a .bin. We would do that, and then you would save it, right? And then when you reloaded, the reload command, it asks you, do you want to save, right? Or typically it does. Okay, not from this iOS, but it usually says, hey, system has been modified. Would you like to keep these changes? You hit yes, because you want it to boot to that new Flash that you just put, that new image or iOS that you just put on the Flash. All right, so that's going to be it for this lab. I want to thank everyone for viewing, and stay tuned with us as we go over our next lab, which is going to be FTP. Thank you.